Good evening and welcome everyone to the Makers Demo Day. My name is John and I'm a technical coach here at Makers. This evening, our June 2021 cohort will be showcasing their incredible final projects, which they've been working on since Monday last week. Afterwards, please stick around for a Q&A session with myself, Owen, who is a technical coach and pod lead here at Makers, and Grant, our head of partnerships. Many of you will already know that Makers is a 16-week-long coding bootcamp, and it's an intensive learning experience. And over the course of their time here, developers go from knowing only the very basics of coding to being able to build a full-stack application from scratch. We believe that anyone can learn to code. Just a few months ago, the developers in this cohort were enjoying their first week here, getting to grips with test driving, pair programming, and using Ruby classes. And now they can build and deploy whole projects, creating the products they themselves would like to use. I've had a really great time working with the June cohort. It's been really amazing to see each of them develop their skills over the last few months. And it's been especially amazing to see them helping each other and building each other up in their peer groups, their project groups, and in their cohort as a whole. The camaraderie shown by the group is really something special, and I'm pleased to have been able to help them along this journey. The whole cohort has made incredible progress over the past 16 weeks. Each week, learners are faced with brand new topics and challenges, and they have to build up both resilience and their learning processes to break down those challenges and work through them step by step. And this cohort has definitely risen to the challenge together. You all set out to learn so many new things over the past 10 days, and it's been really exciting to see you get to grips with them and produce such impressive projects. I'm really happy for all of you, and I hope you're proud of the achievements you've made in the past few months. Without further delay, I'd like to introduce the first team to present this evening, and that is the Noodle Gang with their web application Chronicle. The teamwork you've demonstrated from the start of this project has been absolutely fantastic, and I've been really impressed to see the progress you've made in such a short space of time. So please take it away.
Ooh. Hello. Thank you for coming along. We really appreciate it. Hope you're all doing well today. As you can see, this is our app Chronicle by us Noodle Gang. A special shout has to go out to Sen, the founder of Noodle Gang. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today. But you know, I'm just gonna kind of get back into it. So Chronicle, what is it? It's an app that allows you to track books that you want to read, that you are reading, or you have read, and you can also do the same with movies that you have or that you've seen or you want to see. We also have a bunch of other features, like you can rate them as well. To go into more about the why of why we've made this product, I'm going to hand over to my brilliant friend Kareem.
Thanks a lot, Will. Yeah, so why did we build Chronicle? Well, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm being bombarded by entertainment sources these days. There's Netflix to watch, there's books to read, and over lockdown, I had time to actually catch up on my backlog. But now social engagements are starting up again. I feel like I'm under massive pressure to make sure I read efficiently or keep track on top of like what I'm reading, what I'm watching. So we thought it would be really nice to have an app where all of that lives under one roof, where you can see what you have read, what you have watched, what you thought of it, and what you are going to read and watch in the future. And to do that, we had to work really hard on the team, which Brett's going to talk to us about now.
Thanks, Kareem. Yeah, we discussed right at the beginning a charter, which you can now see on the screen, and we referred to it regularly. And much of the purpose of the project was to learn to work together efficiently as a team, and communication was paramount. We had daily check-ins, which everyone enjoyed, and here we could reflect on the things that were going well and perhaps things that weren't. We broke up our working sessions into intense 2-day work sprints, mostly in pairs, and then we met as a group afterwards to discuss our progress. We made a point of setting aside daily periods for personal learning, which was vital. And the team cohesion remained really strong despite the fact that we lost a team member. And the cohesion was thanks in part to strong leadership from Kareem and Elsa, who fell naturally into these roles, and Will's brilliant interpersonal skills, which kept us happy and sane. And the highlight was an in-person meeting for a day, which was at home, which was both enjoyable and highly productive. I'm going to hand you over to Elsa now for some information about our processes.
Thanks, Brett. So after we developed our charter, we could get started on developing our app. So first, we went through a process of ideation and design, where we decided what we wanted to make and what we wanted it to look like. And on screen, you can see some of the mock-ups we made before we got started to see like what we wanted to make. And we chose the name Chronicle because it is a record, and it's a record of stories. So we thought the name would be appropriate. We chose tech that would help us that would help us develop this app in an efficient way, but also challenge us with new technologies. And we started building our minimum viable product, which was just to add some information, a title and an author, and then be able to save that into a book list. Then to make that easier, we implemented a Google Books API, which means that we could ask that you can search in the database of Google's books and then add those books to your list. And we also added status, like, are you reading it? Do you want to read it? And a rating between 1 and 5. And then when we got that all nicely finished, we started doing the whole same thing for movies. Unfortunately, we didn't have time for everything. And a social feature where you could, for instance, see what other people have rated it, what the average rating is, we couldn't implement that on time. And then I'm going to hand over to Britt to start talking about our difficulties and successes.
Thanks, Elsa. Yes. In fact, I have to admit at times to being overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the new technology we had to learn. And I felt sometimes I wasn't keeping up. But the nature of the project was such that many of the processes, as Elsa said, we could repeat them. And I found particularly when we started with movies that I could catch up, and going through the process again at my own pace, it was a really good way of overcoming that particular difficulty. Kareem?
Thanks, Brett. Yeah, so one of the things which I struggled with was my work pacing. I'm super competitive, especially with myself, and I kind of came sprinting out of the gates to the sort of detriment of my own work ethic. And I overcame that by sort of leaning on my teammates who reminded me to, obviously Makers runs yoga sessions and meditation sessions. So attending those again and taking some time out really helped me with that. And I also really loved the width of technology that we got to work on, which really helped my sense of fun throughout the project. Will?
Yep. So on that, the kind of width of technology, sometimes it can kind of feel like, you know, you're in a big group and maybe you feel like maybe I can't contribute as much to this group as I perhaps like to. And, you know, it can all be very overwhelming sometimes. So I think that was kind of a big thing for me. I kind of overcame that by sort of not being afraid to ask for help from my teammates and to, you know, really delve into my own learning. So overall, I feel like this final project was a very big success because I learned a lot and I had a lot of fun along the way. Elsa?
Yeah, so my major struggle was making sure that we were testing enough in terms of automated testing. So tests that work without you actually clicking buttons yourself, which was difficult because we had to use a completely new to us technology to do it and had to use different ways than we'd done before. But what I really enjoyed was making different API calls with like finding books and that kind of thing and making everything look really fluid and beautiful. And now it's time for our demo.
Thanks, Elsa. So this is a pre-recorded demo. So I'll talk you through what's happening on screen. So here's our homepage. And you can see to sign up, you need a username, email, and password, pretty standard stuff. I'm not going to sign up. I've got an account which I've already made for this demo. So that's the email. And the password is super secret. So we're now on our logged in page. You can see we're welcomed by our username. And yeah, there's the options at the top. So we'll take a look at what movies I'm watching first. And as you can see, I've got a pretty terrible taste in movies. And you can see that I've got a list of movies, some which I've watched before, some which I want to watch, some which I haven't rated yet. So a lot of them are in different states. So that's the movie list. There's also a book list as well, which functions in quite a similar way. So you can see that there's a book on JavaScript there, there's a bit of sci-fi there, and again, you can see that it defaults to unread. And again, I can set the status. So, you know, I've loved Have Fun with Maths. It was a really great book. I want to read it, and then, you know, I have read it. And, you know, what did I think of it? 5-star, would read again. So how do we add books and movies to our lists? So obviously, Elsa mentioned we have a search in Google's database. So we have the key term, and you can see the title, the author, the description, the picture. We can then add the book, and it appears in our list. And as you can see, it defaults to unread. And movies works, you know, mostly the same way. Go into movies. The difference is we use the movie database as our online database, which we look inside. So we look inside there for Harry Potter. we add the 4th installment to our library. And again, in the same way you can do it with movies, with books, you can set the status and rating here as well. So if we go back to our homepage, just to see the styling a little bit more. So I'm going to actually try and, I'll resize this now just to show off something which Elsa worked quite hard on, which is getting a responsive layout. So if you take a look at the top nav bar, you can see it's just menu now. So if we click on that, you can see that there's actually a drop down. So it recognized that once it's of a certain height, it goes to the drop down, which I thought was a cool thing, which Elsa worked on. And yeah, there's also a profile page, which you can update your username, update your password. So yeah, thanks guys. That's our new username. And you can also delete your account. So I'll go ahead and delete my account here in case anyone wants to make an email address with that email. Cool. I think that's it. So I'll go to the final slide now, which is a very funny pun. Can I has a pause, because cats have paws. There's also a link down here, which is, I think if I leave it with John, if anyone wants to check it out, and it's our website. So the app we just showed you is live. You can use it to track books and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's fully working. So go and check it out. We'd love to hear what you think of it. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Noodle Gang. You're definitely the smartest dressed cohort we've had in a while, and I think that's a really impressive app you've got there. There's a lot to be proud of. Next, I'd like to introduce the Pink Cloud Collective and their app KeyJ. The focus on process and doing things right the first time was really impressive throughout this project. And as a result, the app you've produced is really clean and well coded, and it's great. Without any further ado, please welcome Pink Cloud Collective.
Thank you, John. I will just play. Oh, that's not the right slide. 1 second. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to KeyJ by the Pink Cloud Collective. I'm Izzy, and my other lovely team members are Matt, James, Luke, and Pav, who I will hand over to now just to talk a little bit about our project.
Thanks very much, Izzy. So there are over 70 million different songs on Spotify. So whether you're a DJ, musician, or music enthusiast, finding songs that work well together in a set or playlist can be a laborious and time-consuming task. We wanted to make it quick and easy for users to get detailed information about a song. We also wanted to help them compare data for different songs and understand how well they matched. Our focus was on learning a new code base, new coding languages, making sure our app was bug-free, which we did by running a variety of tests. We also wanted to get a finished product we were proud of, and of course, have fun. We wrote the code for our app using React, Node, and Express. We tested this code with Jest React Testing Library and Puppeteer, and we got all our song data through Spotify. I'll hand you over now to Luke to demonstrate the app.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Pav. So yeah, this is our app, KeyJ, made by the Pink Cloud Collective. When you go on the homepage, you're met with a search bar, which is ready for us to enter the name of our first song that we want to search some details for. And we're going to hit the submit button. It'll bring us up song names that we've searched for. As you can see, Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley is the top one there. Apparently there's also a football version that Rick Astley's done, which I was previously unaware of. We're just going to click the artist name now, and it will bring up the songs and albums by that particular artist. So if you wanted to, have a look around, you can do that. We're going to click the album, Hold Me in Your Arms, and that will provide a track list for you. So if we wanted to choose one of those songs, we can select that, and it brings us here. It will give us some song statistics that DJs or music enthusiasts might like. So things to do like the energy, as you can see there, the danceability, the tempo, which is how fast or slow the song is, the key it will provide for you, as well as a mood, which is represented by an emoji. We're just going to come down now and click see similar songs, because it might be that you want to, get some inspiration. If you didn't have a song in mind, it will give you songs that will sort of match, either the key or close songs that are similar to the one that you've already chosen. If, however, you have a song in mind, you can enter it into the search bar, click submit, and it will give you a search of those songs that you've entered. So we're just going to come down here and click a song, and it will take you to this comparison page. Now, this obviously you can see that there's song statistics for the song that you first chose on the left, song statistics for the song that you chose on the right, and obviously a handy little comparison screen in the middle, or tab in the middle, that shows you the percentage match. So it matches, the energy, the danceability, tempo, key, and mood. So it matches those statistics and gives you a little sort of bar to represent each song's level. There's some handy logic in the background to do with the key relating to the circle of fifths. So if you're a muso, you might know what that means, but basically it just determines sort of how close or how well two songs might go together in the relative key. And also the page is fully responsive. So if you have a smaller screen like a mobile phone or an iPad, you can view it there, and it will change dynamically. So yeah, I'll now pass to Matt for the challenges that we faced.
Thanks, Luke. So yeah, so the first challenge that we really faced was getting data from other websites. Our web app relies heavily on connecting to Spotify in order to get song data. Our original idea was to create playlists from a single song based on the similarities, but we quickly realized that due to the amount of data we would need to access, that this wasn't achievable within the 2 weeks that we had to work on this project. We had to scale back our idea to work by comparing single songs rather than entire playlists. Another challenge that we faced was learning to use technologies that were new to us. So this was a completely intentional challenge that we took on in order for us to learn as much as possible. We all felt fairly overwhelmed to begin with because of this. But that being said, after what felt like a slow first week, our understanding of the tech we were using started to increase dramatically. And along with it, so did the speed at which we added more features to our project. The last challenge I will talk about is our testing process. So one of the aims that all of us really wanted to incorporate into this project was the use of professional testing practices. Because we were learning to use technologies that were new to us, this did prove to be difficult, and our process did stray slightly, but more so down to unfamiliarity with the tech. In the end, our final product is something that we are all extremely proud of, as any challenges we faced were quickly overcome and turned into successes. And now to talk about those successes, I'll pass you over to James.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. The term teamwork is bandied around a lot. When teams do in fact work, it's because its members are passionate about a shared, established goal. The project begins to take on a life of its own through its individual members. People show up early, stay behind late, and instead of watching the clock, they look at what more they might still achieve. The effects of this are the work gets done, the project meets its deadline, the product exceeds expectation, the team has a memorable, fun experience, achieving learning milestones. This was our experience as a team. When problems felt too big, the whole group would tackle them together, sometimes late into the evening until that hurdle was overcome. And consequently, the finished product, our experience building it, and the developers we are now because of it, are our successes. I will pass you back now to Izzy, our guardian angel, who will round up for us this presentation.
Thank you, James, for those lovely words. Just to kind of sum up a bit, we've learned so much over the last 2 weeks about new programming languages, about teamwork, and even about some basic music theory for some of us. It's been so rewarding to see this idea come into fruition and to put into practice all the learning we've done over the last 12 weeks. And that's it from the Pink Cloud Collective. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy for all of you and everything you've achieved over the last 4 months. you should be really, really proud of yourselves. It's been a genuine pleasure to work with you during your time so far at Makers, and I'm really excited to see where you go next. Take it easy this weekend and rest up. You have lots to be proud of, so be sure to take some time to yourself and celebrate. And we'll see you all on Monday for the next step. I'm going to hand over to Grant now to start the Q&A. So please do stick around if you have any questions for us about the Makers course, the kind of things we coach here, our curriculum, how to apply, whatever it is that you're wondering about. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a lovely weekend.
Thanks, John, and thanks, everyone. Awesome presentations. Well done all, and great to see everyone speaking and involved. And it's really testament to how much you've achieved in such a short space of time. So as John mentioned, both John, Owen, from the technical coaching team are here, as am I, to answer any questions. I can see that there's a raised hand from Jenny. Jenny, so do I need to click chat? Is that what I do, Owen, to allow attendees to speak? Let's have a look.
I think it's probably best if they ask questions via the Q&A tab on the bottom. It should be in the toolbar. If you can see that, click that and you can ask your question there. We can keep track of all of them there and answer some of them by text, things like that. If you can't find this, let us know in the Zoom chat instead, and we can work something else out.
Brilliant, thanks, Owen. So yeah, just Q&A button, drop it in there, and we should be able to give you the answers straight away. Brilliant. So the first question has come through, and the first question says, what is the state of Makers hiring partners, e.g. job opportunities, considering the situation we've all been in the COVID pandemic, I believe. I'm delighted actually to share with everyone that in the last quarter, we had the highest number of our learners secure jobs than we've seen in any previous quarter since the pandemic ensued. So overall, the numbers have not dropped in any considerable number, which we're actually really delighted by. We've seen a number of hiring partners who we've worked with for a number of years continue to hire, and we've also seen new partners come on board to Makers. It's fair to say that there was a slow down of pace of hiring during the first lockdown and the first period when there was a lot of unknowns for businesses. But yeah, I'm pleased to share that the state of hiring, to answer your question, is pretty good. Yeah, the highest number of people in the cohort secured jobs last quarter, and we hope to have a similar bumper quarter. So the next question, I'm going to point this one to John and Owen, if that's okay. And it says, what is the workload like? Is there homework to do outside the full-time hours?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Grant. The workload is, it's an intensive bootcamp, so it is full-time Monday to Friday, and there are weekend challenges as well, which the learners do over the weekends. We encourage them not to spend too long on the weekend challenges, because it's very important to us that they take a break and that they don't, work themselves too hard. But yeah, it's a full-time course with some work on the weekends. But here at Makers, we also have a great culture of well-being first, and making sure that people don't work themselves too hard, and that they put their own well-being above everything else.
Thanks, John. Brilliant. I'll take the next question, which is, or next two. So there are two questions. One is, do you have part-time options? And the other one is, are boot camps online only? So I'll answer both of those just very quickly, and I might lean to Owen or John to talk about the online only and hybrid options in a second. So to answer the part-time, at present, we don't have any live options for part-time boot camps. We have run part-time boot camps in the past, and we are exploring all the time whether we will launch other cohorts on the part-time basis. But at this stage, we're reflecting from the last part-time cohort that we recently ran, and we'll be looking at deciding whether or not to go ahead with more part-time options in the new year. So if you are looking to secure part-time, there is a space on the website to register your interest, and we'll communicate with you once we have analysed the output from the last part-time offering. Are the boot camps online only is a great question. Of course, during the pandemic, and for safety reasons, we did not have our London campus open, and we did run just online only courses. Now, recently, as well, actually, sorry, soon, as of Monday, we have our first hybrid offering starting again. So we have a mix of online and in-person teaching as we come out of the pandemic, and as the numbers start to become in a better position, then we will continue to review how much of it will be face-to-face versus online. But to talk a little bit more about the structure, I'll hand over to John and Owen, who have been involved in the project of launching next week's hybrid return.
I'm happy to take this, John. Yeah, our first hybrid cohort have just completed the 4-week pre-course, which has stayed remote. So they're starting on site next Monday. So currently we're planning to run like a mixture of hybrid and remote cohorts to keep both options. And this is our first hybrid cohort as well. So we're going to keep an eye on things and COVID cases, things like that, to just keep tabs on safety and make sure that the training that we do go ahead with is safe and comfortable for our learners. So at the moment, the split in the hybrid course is that you will spend just under half of your time in the 12-week full-time bootcamp on site. So that's 6 weeks total on site, 6 weeks remote, and they're kind of interspersed. So you'll get an experience of 2 weeks on site first, you'll go remote for 2 weeks, back on site for 2 weeks. Goes a little bit like that. Fridays have stayed fully remote as well. So you'll be in 4 days a week on the weeks that are on site. So we've reduced the capacity of learners that we would have had on site pre-pandemic so that there's room for social distancing. And we have a lot of measures in place to keep things as safe as possible with social distancing, masks when you're moving around the building. We've made some slight changes to the number of people you'll pair with in a given week. And I think that we've done a good job at kind of like keeping things like a nice vibe that won't feel too weird for you, hopefully. So yeah, that's all kicking off next Monday. There's probably a bit more of a breakdown on our website of the differences between the two offerings. And I think if you check that out, have a little bit of a think about what might work best for you. Obviously the flexibility of remote will suit some people better, other people will want to come in for that part of the hybrid cohort. But yeah, I think if you have any more specific questions about the hybrid cohort, please do ask in the Q&A. I'm really happy to chat about it. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Owen. And I'll just quickly pick up one other question, which says, I'm interested in studying coding. I live further away from London. It would be difficult to leave the current job and come into London. So just to confirm that we are going to continue running remote options as well. So hopefully we will continue to increase the number of in-person weeks on the hybrid option, and we continue to deliver the hybrid, but we will rotate. So the next cohort will be a fully remote, and then hopefully as long as things are safe and everything remains in a good place, we can then repeat another hybrid and continue to alternate the cohorts to allow those not to have to come to London into campus if though they so wish not to. So I'll answer that one quickly, and then I'll come on to job hunting. There's a couple around job hunting, so I'm going to try and capture a couple of them in one answer. One of the questions asks around what is the average percentage of placements makers have with their students? And then the other one also asks what's the average time between graduating the course and securing the first job? So I'll capture those two in one answer. So the percentage of people changes quite a lot. It ranges from anything from 80% around about up to 90%, dependent on the cohort and dependent on the situation of the individuals. Not everyone is looking to secure a job straight out of the boot camp. That's why we don't kind of measure on a sort of hard percentage basis. However, everyone who is looking to job hunt is supported and given full support by the career coaching team and the partnerships team to secure work. And so the career coaches will work with you after you've graduated for as long as it takes to secure your first job, and they'll help you with CVs, GitHub profiles, recommending companies, and also when you secure interviews, prepping with those, and you'll also have access to the technical coaches. Alongside that, to complement your own job search, the partnerships team build big partnerships, wider partnerships with employers who like to hire multiple makers, and we'll bring these to you as well. And that process can take anything from 3 to 6 months. Some people secure jobs really quickly, straight out of them, because that's what they want to do. They're prepared. They've already researched and looked at the industries and are prepared. Some people take a little bit longer. They want to home in on certain skills. They want to practice on their Java. They want to be really prepared for tech tests, and can take up to 6 months. So it's just dependent on everyone's individual situation. But the sort of overriding process is that makers are here to support you as soon as you graduate until you get a job, however long that takes. I hope that answers your questions, and I will now hand over to both John, or probably John or Owen. What technologies are you teaching during the course?
So we start off with teaching Ruby, teaching object-oriented programming in Ruby. It makes for a good starting language. And we then move on to teaching some database technologies. We teach Postgres to start with, and then on to JavaScript and front-end technologies like that. Those are the main focuses of the course. People sometimes pick up other ones. They sometimes decide to do a project in Python or something along those lines. But in general, it's Ruby and JavaScript.
Thanks, John. Got another question here. What are the different boot camps available? Do you have a data science course? So I'll just start by answering that, and maybe Owen or John will want to pitch in. We primarily focus on software development. That is our core, and that is what we're specialist in and have been doing for the last 8 years. And we've iterated over the years to sort of adopt more modern processes, and also built additional bridging and training courses throughout. So whilst we do focus primarily on the boot camp of just software development as an option for the academy, you do get access to ad hoc other courses that can help develop additional skills, depending on what's being delivered at the time after you've graduated. Owen, is there anything you would add to that, or is that perfect? Brilliant. Can we do 100% online is another question. Yes, so back to the earlier question around the alternating remote only versus hybrid, the idea is that we will always have a fully remote option available for those who prefer that option too, as we've seen it very successful over the COVID pandemic. Let me just have a look. How often will cohorts begin going forward? Will it be monthly? Great question. Easy answer. Yes. We have cohorts every 4 weeks. We release up to the next 3 months on our website, but we have planned for next year every 4 weeks. Do you expect a minimum level in coding or maths, etc.? John, Owen, I'll pass to you on that one.
So when you join the course, when you're doing the admissions, there's a small coding test, which basically just assesses the very basics, what variables are, what basic Ruby methods, that kind of thing. But other than that, there's no requirement for you to have done coding before or have any maths experience either.
Brilliant. And I think what I'll add there is just around the admission process. So I can see there's also a question asking about the admissions process, and that does actually link into this answer. Makers are about taking people on a transition and supporting them pivot career. So we are really focused on helping people who haven't coded move into a career in coding. So as part of the admissions process, we will introduce you into coding tasks and coding exercises that will hopefully sort of set you up and build the baseline for us to move into the coding test that we run. And that is focused on looking at your problem solving abilities. And then we assess your aptitudes rather than just your sort of coding and whether you can repeat code. So the admissions process is made up of a self-led coding exercise, then a coding task focusing on problems, and then a telephone interview, a screening interview looking at aptitudes. And that's the kind of 3 key components of the admissions process that we would look for you to pass before coming on board as a maker. And then you would go into the pre-course, and I can see that there's a question here that says, please tell us more about the pre-course. So John, Owen, could you tell the anonymous attendee, it says here, I didn't have the name, please tell them about the pre-course.
Yeah, thanks. I can take this one. So the pre-course is a 4-week part-time pre-course, but it's very much part of the overall 16-week bootcamp experience. So it's in there because it's really it's this period of time where you get to meet your cohort members and start problem solving and to start really getting into what the day-to-day of a developer really is. So, I mean, it touches on a couple of different topics. You'll get introduced to the command line, to version control, to using GitHub, to getting a bit more comfortable with the developer's environment before getting into procedural Ruby. So it's when you'll keep kind of building on the skills you've picked up throughout the interview process with Code Wars katas and things. And you really, you start getting into kind of the day-to-day. So given a problem, how can you break it down? How can you figure out what it is that you need to write in Ruby? How can you find out what it is you don't know in order to complete a challenge, and to really start building on these super integral problem solving and debugging skills. So it's this quite, it's part-time, but it's still quite intensive because of the level of challenge. And really what it's doing, it's preparing you for the intensity of the full-time course. So after those 4 weeks, you have built quite a bit of resilience. You've built up a way to independently problem solve, to debug, to learn how to rely on your peers and your cohort members, how to articulate the blockers that you're experiencing. And it just gets you a little bit more ready to be an independent dev. So yeah, it's part-time, it's 4 weeks. You'll be in the cohort channel together with your pre-course coaches. We're here to support as well. And you'll be given a series of challenges each week to complete. And part of that pre-course material is mandatory. So you're not able to join the full-time course for your own kind of sake if you don't complete it within the time, but coaches keep tabs on progress. So we do check in with you to see if there's any support that you need while you work through it. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Owen. So there's a couple of other questions here that I will take. So the selection course question around sort of, does it depend on current coding skills or a test, and what are the chances to make it? Just covered some of that in the last question around, yes, there is a coding exercise. It's a self-led coding exercise, and yes, there is a coding test. I won't say too much about the test because I don't want to give it away. It's a selection test for a reason. But it isn't about sort of just mimicking code and remembering code. So the test is designed to assess whether you've understood the problem, not necessarily that you can write reams of and lines of code. So I'll give you that for your preparation. But if you've done the coding exercise, you should be well versed in what you'll be asked in the coding test. What else should we go to now? So let's have a look. Have previous candidates joined jobs that use programming languages not taught in the course? That's a great question, really great question. I'll lean to John and Owen as well, but we're not looking to train you as a Ruby developer and purely a Ruby developer. The idea of the course is to help you be prepared to go into a wide variety of tech stacks. And as you saw from today's demos, as you reach the final stages of the bootcamp, you'll pivot into other languages that you may never have tested. And both groups actually shared that today, that they worked in tech stacks that they'd never worked in. And the idea around that is really to prepare you for any tech stack and to go into any environment and feel confident that you can approach that and self-lead your way through, as well as getting supported by your employer. So the alumni survey that we do annually actually showed a wide variety of tech stacks that people go into. So really different tech stacks, too many to name, to be honest. But John, Owen, would you add anything to that?
I think you've covered most of it. Week 6 of our course is when learners first are introduced to JavaScript, but the focus of that week isn't now learn JavaScript. It's develop a process that you can use to learn other programming languages. And so as a result of that, when the course is finished, or when people are going into looking for work, they have the skills required to teach themselves a new language if needed. People get hired doing Java, they get hired doing Python. It's definitely not limited to just the languages we cover on the course. Brilliant, thank you. So there's a question here around costs and finance options. There, I can take your details and I can send you the link, direct links to the page with all of the information and the different finance options and different discounts. There's quite a lot of options to go through that I wouldn't have time to, or it'd take quite a bit of time to go through the different options. So I'll take the details down and I'll send them through. On the Makers homepage, if you go onto the Makers homepage and you search finance, it will take you to the financing page. And there are a number of options that previous learners have used to finance the course when self-funding. There are, hopefully that helps, and I'll also take a note to send you the link with all the costings and discounts as well. Interesting question here. What is the typical profile of your students? And I love the fact that they've put, if there's any, in the brackets, because that would probably sum it up. We don't really look at a typical profile for Makers. We're not really looking or pinpointing certain individuals to come on board to Makers. And I think there are, of course, a number of sort of measures of where people worked previously and what industries they've worked in, and other profile demographics that we do collate in the alumni survey. But I can honestly say that
you know, there are always such a wide range of profiles on every cohort that really everyone who meets the selection criteria is committed to a self-led sort of learning environment and really wants to pivot career can come on board. Yeah, I would not say that there is a typical profile. Owen, John, anything else to add to that?
I think you've pretty much covered it.
Yeah.
We have people coming from all backgrounds and from all walks of life. I wouldn't say there's a typical profile at all.
Yeah, which makes it all the more exciting for us and for everyone who becomes part of the community. I think another question that's slightly aligned to this, but more focused on asking how many people are actually making a career switch. I don't have the percentage to hand, but I can confidently say it is the majority of people that join us are pivoting careers. So on average, people will have 2 to 5 years other industry experience where they've worked in maybe an office or in education or in finance or, you know, in marketing, you know, lots of different backgrounds as we mentioned, but on average, people have probably had about 2 years to 5 years work experience, and then they are pivoting career and deciding to come on board and become a developer. So hopefully that answers your question. Just checking for other questions. So what is the criteria for your hiring partners? Great question. Okay, so yeah, so there is different criteria for different businesses, but overall what we're looking for when we're building partnerships with hiring partners is we're working with businesses who want to hire multiple makers and who will provide an environment that's going to be really progressive and supportive for juniors. So typically we're looking for, you know, do they have experience of onboarding juniors? Have they already set up a mentor system or a buddy system to support juniors? So we are really looking for hiring partners that can really support and nurture people coming from boot camps and into their first careers. The process question that the other part of the question that you've asked there around them being the recruitment process around the hiring partners, makers will do the pre-selection on behalf of those hiring partners. So there will be a number of things that they'll look up for us to screen on, and there'll be a number of people apply. There'll always be more people than the roles, and the team will work with the employer to create a shortlist. So I think that answers the question there around the recruitment team and the CV list. So it seems quite specific. So if I haven't answered that, please send us a message directly and I will pick that specific one up with you directly. Just checking, still got a few more here coming through. Thank you, everyone. Great question here. How many tutors teach one cohort? And what is the gender balance? I'll pass that over to John and Owen.
Hey, so currently on the academy side, we have 4 tutors who cover the whole cohort, and they'll swap in and out. Each tutor takes kind of 1 week, each coach. I think if you're asking about the gender balance of the cohorts themselves, they are mostly male, but by no means 100%. There's always, it's probably about 75-25 would be my guess. I'm sure the admissions team would be able to have a more accurate answer on that. Yeah, I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, so I think John's cohorts, that would be your kind of experience of the cohorts. Overall, we are just under 40% on overall across all of our cohorts in terms of gender balance. And that's historically, so that's over the 8 years, which is pretty good. More recently, we've had quite a lot of swing cohorts. So as John's experienced, kind of 75 male, 25 female, and we have seen some the other way as well, more recently as well. So overall, just under 40% across all of our cohorts in the last 8 years, and we are just running the numbers for the last 12 months. So whoever's asked that, it says anonymous attendee again. If you drop us a note, we can send you the latest alumni stats as soon as they come out. But I'm pretty confident they're going to be above that, which is great news. So there's a couple around. Oh, sorry, actually, I missed a part on the career switcher one. There was a part that said, how useful are soft skills gained in other careers to getting a job as a developer? Or is the majority of a candidate's value derived from what they learn in a boot camp? That is a great one, and apologies to have missed that part on your question. They are vitally important, and the softer skills together with the technical skills are something that we really focus on here. I'll let John or Owen talk more about the kind of emotional intelligence wellbeing curriculum and how we feed it through the boot camp. But I will say that lots of employers that we work with really value both the softer skills and the technical skills, and it's something we're continuously having conversations with our employers about, to really sort of focus in on both sides and have a really holistic candidate coming through into their job vacancy. So definitely important. Owen, John, do you want to add anything about the emotional intelligence soft skills through the course?
Yeah, I would say like you probably have your own kind of idea of what you would consider to be soft skills and technical skills, but it's really like this one big bubble of you as a developer. So your previous experiences in any industry will absolutely stand to you. They're super important because they've shaped who you are, like what you're driven by, what you're interested and passionate about, and all of those things. So I think they channel into the bootcamp in a lot of different ways, and then they in turn are reflected in the interview processes you go through. So because Makers has such a heavy focus on learning to collaborate as a developer through pair programming from the very first week to your first engineering project as a dev in week 5 of the bootcamp as well. These are really heavy focuses at Makers because we are simulating what it's like to work as a developer on the job from the get-go. It's like putting you right into that kind of environment from the very beginning, and like coaching you through all of the different kinds of things that can kind of crop up. So I guess the reason why I view it as one big bubble is that when you're working well together as a team and as a pair of developers, that's what enables good learning and progress. So they're integral. So that's why we do heavily really focus on that. So all of your experience from before can really influence how you work in teams, how much you know yourself, how you work, how you don't work, and yeah, and to grow from there. And just like, it's just really interesting as well, because I mean, software development is really, it's just problem solving. So no matter what career you've come from, you solve problems. And I think it's all absolutely relevant. And it's just one of the kind of interesting and more, yeah, it's one of the more interesting kind of parts of software development is that the thing that you're going towards, it's less relying on one specific piece of syntax or something that you're worried about, but it's more about your approach and how you can break down a problem and really take it bit by bit. So yeah, long story short, it will be integral to your experience.
Brilliant. Thank you, Owen. So I'll take the question in the chat, and then I will also take one other one in the Q&A. So the question in the chat is, would hiring partners be interested in part-time employees at all? The short answer is yes. We do have people go on from the course to go into part-time employment. So yes, it's fair to say they're not as readily available as sort of full-time or remote and hybrid roles that we're seeing now, but there is definitely employers will consider part-time developers as well. And then the other question that I had in here was, what can the course offer over grad schemes stroke traineeships? That's a really great question, and one that I'm probably not going to answer in the way that you probably expect me to sort of try and compare them, because they're very different offers, and so it really is down to you as an individual and what you want. So, you know, grad schemes and traineeships offer different routes to the same thing, you know, and I suppose, you know, the grad schemes in coding, you know, there are many grad schemes out there, 2-year schemes where you can kind of do day release. There are traineeships where you'll go and just shadow and learn, and there are boot camps like us who really kind of simulate the real world environment and get you into a place where you're able to self-lead your own learning, and they're all just very different. There is you know, I'm not going to sit here and kind of try and bash down grad schemes or traineeships and promote makers boot camps over them, because they are very, very different offerings, very different time schemes, and very different commitments. So yeah, I'm happy if that doesn't answer your question to touch base directly, or you can speak to one of the admissions team and they can talk in more detail around that. But yeah, that they are completely different offerings, different timescales, and yeah, I wouldn't want to try and compare in any way. There's 2 questions here that I will hand over to. There was one that's gone now, I think, but the question was around Ruby and Python. I don't know if Owen or John, you caught that. And then the second one, which I'll pass to you in the same answer, is does the training include Agile?
I missed the Ruby Python question. I can't see that on the list. But for the other one, the training does include Agile. We, for the engineering projects that the devs do, they split into Agile teams and they have sprints and stand-ups, and we talk about a little bit about how Agile processes work and why they're so positive and so common in software development. Did you catch what the question about Python was, Grant? Did you see what it was?
So I caused chaos by answering this, by typing it, but I'm happy to share a little bit anyway. So for anybody that's interested, I wrote out an answer in Answered. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but yeah, so the course does focus on Ruby for the 4-week part-time pre-course and the first 5 weeks of the full-time course as well. And then the focus changes to learning a new language, which is the kind of unit of learning you'll take part in week 6. So the focus is on, like, how can you take what you already know about programming after the pre-course and the first 5 weeks of the full-time course and apply that to a brand new language like JavaScript, let's say. So we do it through JavaScript, and also about identifying, well, what's new here? What's the kind of like differences between these languages? What can we do with them? So these are the things that we kind of focus on. So some frameworks that Ruby uses that we coach on the bootcamp are like Sinatra, Postgres, and Rails as well. But the goal is to get you to a place where by your last 2 weeks of the full-time course, you do feel confident to take on something brand new. So often in demo days, you'll see learners demonstrating projects in a tech stack called Mern. And they've picked up a framework called React, completely self-taught. And it's kind of the thing that we're hoping to set you up for lifelong learning. Like in software development, it just keeps going, it keeps moving. There's always going to be something new for you to be learning. So that's where we want to get you to a place of like confidence. So if there's other languages, frameworks, and things you want to pick up, that you'll feel like you'll be able to.
Thanks, Owen, and thanks for answering that again out loud. That's really, really helpful. And John, thank you for the clarification on Agile. There's a couple of questions in here around the DFE funded bootcamp. So in terms of the timings to apply. So just for context, there are a handful of spaces available in a pilot program that we're running with the Department for Education as part of their Skills Bootcamp program. So there are a number of places available for those residing in London to apply for as part of the regional overall skills bootcamps program. And so all the details are available on our website. And the question around if it's different, it is no, there's no difference. We will be offering the same content and the length of course, and the dates will tell you whether it's remote or hybrid on the course schedule on the Apply Now page. And then the question more specifically around whether you have time to apply for them starting in October. It would be really hard to answer that without knowing your kind of personal circumstances, how much time you've got to commit over the next few weeks. But I would urge you to sort of reach out to myself, Joe or Rachel on the admissions team. So my email is grant@makers.tech, or you've got joe@makers.tech or rachel@makers.tech, either one, choose one. And one of us will be able to understand a bit more about your current situation and timings to complete the Code Academy and the resources, Code Wars resources. Without sort of knowing whether you've got time over the next few weeks would be hard to answer, but most people can complete the first coding exercises and the coding task within 2 weekends. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the sort of time scales, and I hope that answers your question. Okay, final questions I've got here, unless anyone's got any more. Two very similar questions. Why makers? Why makers? Just the question. No. Why makers over other coding boot camps and other boot camps who have great reviews? It's always a great question that we get asked when we're talking to people who are considering makers. I think each bootcamp offers a slightly different, or has a slightly different or unique twist to it. And to be fair, I think one of the differences that I would always say with makers is just a community of people that we've trained, and the technical coaches that we bring on board. You've seen two amazing technical coaches in Owen and John, but all of our coaches from the coaching team are experienced software developers and experienced technical specialists before they are trainers or coaches or helping to teach people. So, that is one of the things we massively focus on. We make sure that everyone that you interact with has real world experience. That's one of the things that we sort of always have made sure of. And secondly is the community and the approach in terms of the holistic approach that we take around the emotional intelligence and wellbeing curriculum, and just engaging everyone together as a wider community and looking after each other. And I think that really comes out through the learning, through your cohorts, and as you graduate and in the alumni, there are always people in the makers community to support you all the way through your career. I love watching the conversations that happen in the Slack overflow conversations around different alumni members talking about different problems they're facing and helping each other out. It is really, really an active community of people who really want to help people, from the technical coaches all the way through to the alumni. So that would be what I would answer. Owen, John, would you add anything other than repeating yourselves that I've already covered?
I don't know. I don't think I've got much to add. I think makers is great. I think the culture is really good at makers. There's a lot of focus on things that aren't just coding, and we really have a focus on trying to develop skills that will make someone a good software developer, not just a good coder, because those two things aren't quite the same. there's a lot of skills required to be a good software engineer that that stretch far beyond being able to write good code. And we try and cover all of that at Makers.
Yeah, I can definitely co-sign that. I know I'm biased because I work here, but I think the things that drew me to Makers, the main thing that drew me to Makers was Dana's EI curriculum. So Dana is our Chief Joy Officer, and Dana is one of the lead coaches at Makers and has been at Makers for 7 years. And I first heard about Makers by meeting some alumni in my last role. And I noticed a couple of things about them. They had quite a methodical process when they came over to seek support from another developer. They would give me a lot of information about what was going wrong in their code. And they really seemed to have a grasp on, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm expecting to see. And this is what's kind of like acting a bit differently. This is what I tried. So, you know, it was very descriptive and a lot more polished and together than my debugging process was coming out of a software engineering degree, which was quite, I'll say, chaotic. That's just me. So it was that, but as I kind of like, you know, got to know them and started talking about Makers, I heard a lot about Dana and the work that Dana does. So Dana runs workshops with learners at like pivotal moments throughout the bootcamp on like giving and receiving feedback, communication, empathy. And these are things that are like cornerstones of being able to collaborate as developers. So it's not this thing of like, we have technical training and then, you know, yoga, meditation, EI training on the side, but rather we see it as all of one big parcel, the things that you need to be able to thrive as a dev. So my draw is that like, I feel like a lot of what Makers does is what I would have benefited from as a junior dev. But, you know, it's just my kind of experience personally. So I think it comes down to the fact that every dev that comes into our bootcamp is very different, and we'll always do our very best to support you, whatever that support looks like. Take from that what you will, but I'll try to share some like blogs in the chat. I'll share an article by Dana that she wrote in Medium, and another one from our head of training, Alice, that's really interesting, and it talks a little bit about why we prioritize processes and approaches over particular technical concepts. So it'll tell you a little bit about what we try to achieve here.
Brilliant. Thanks, Owen. That's really helpful. And thanks, John, as well. Final question that I've got in the Q&A for this evening. So last call, if you've got any more questions, get them in. But the final question I have here is about the apprenticeship route. Yes, Makers also runs apprenticeship programs and apprenticeship training. The difference with the apprenticeship training is that they are led by employers. So employers will come to us to run their apprenticeship programs. We don't have as much control over when they come available, because it will be decided by the employer and when they want to run programs and start programs. And then we will obviously run apprenticeship programs on behalf and in partnership with the employers. Each time an employer advertises for an opportunity, that will be posted out. If you're looking to find out more and you're looking to register for information, you can email apprentices@makers.tech. Email your details through to apprentices@makers.tech, and someone can contact you and talk a bit more about the apprenticeship process and when the next ones will be coming out. Okay, so I don't think that there are any more questions. It's been awesome to do this Q&A session. I have to say, it was my last minute change for me to join and do this. So I hope everyone's had an enjoyable time listening to my voice answering the questions, because it certainly sounds like to me I've spoke too much. So I hope it's been informative. I hope that you enjoyed the demo days. And the amazing projects that John and the team have been working on, and the answers that Owen has provided. We've got one more question that's come through, and I will answer that question because I want to make sure I get everyone's questions answered. Do you have to apply for a specific course, or can you apply to view to sorry, can you apply with a view to starting when you are ready? Oh, okay. So on the kind of self-funded side, on the academy side, we only offer the software development bootcamp at present. So yeah, so it's just a one course. So you can drop an application in, if you haven't done any of the resources or any of the prep, and we can work with you to work through that. You don't have to wait until you're ready. I would recommend booking a call with Joe or Rachel if you're interested and you're wanting to find out a bit more about when to apply, what the process should be, when to do the coding exercises. Joe and Rachel have worked with hundreds and hundreds of learners who have gone through the course over the last few years, so they'll be really, really happy to support you. And yeah, hopefully that answers your question and that final question. I'll let everyone have a fantastic Friday evening, and I'm wishing you all a great weekend. Thanks for attending, everyone.
Thanks a
Thanks
lot.
a lot.
Bye.